Hello and welcome to the Bridetender podcast. I'm your host, Estee Gordon, and I'm here to tend to the brides like I tend to the bar. So mix yourself a cocktail and let's get ready to discuss all things weddings. Today, I'm excited to welcome Stephanie Black to the podcast. Stephanie is the director of catering and events at Gotham Hall and a consultant with Ziegfeld's Ballroom. Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I'm really excited to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So I also wanted to kind of like tell everybody a little bit about like how we know each other. So Stephanie and I met, honestly, it was like probably like 8 or 9 years ago now. I was a student at NYC, and I believe you were working for the hospitality department at the time,
Yep.
and just like meeting through that, I was a communication student, and there was an opportunity that kind of like arose, that you were working with Health Corps, Dr. Oz's foundation, and picking a few students to come work on the event. And I was one of those students. I was like lucky enough to do that. And then we kind of just over the years, after I graduated and you started working with Gotham Hall, we kind of kept in touch. I volunteered on a few more of Dr. Oz's events, and just here we are a bunch of years later.
Absolutely.
So first I wanted to ask you, how are you doing like through this time, like during the pandemic?
So, doing good. Life has changed a lot, for sure. I think anyone in my industry, our industry, has realized that we're just kind of sitting, waiting, anxious to get back to work. But in the meantime, we're finding things to keep us occupied and enjoy, and whether that's cooking, like myself am doing, or if that's spending time with family and friends. It just depends on what people are doing. But we're all just hanging in there, and we're all ready to get back to it as soon as we can.
Definitely ready to get back to it. I know like you're working in Manhattan. I also typically work in the city, and it just feels so weird to like not be in my normal routine of going there every single day and just like even just witnessing an event of like a regular cocktail hour or getting the bride down the aisle. Like it's been so long, and I just can't wait for that little bit of normalcy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm still thankfully going into the office every once in a while, probably about once a week, which is a little something, but it's definitely not, that spending the 80 hours that I was used to being there. So it's a very different lifestyle right now. It's a lot of work from a computer at home, which is fine for now, but we're looking forward to getting back.
Yeah. And hopefully now with like the governor's ruling of 150 people as of March 15th, hopefully once we have some more clarity on that, we'll start to feel a little bit more normal.
Yeah, I think the whole industry is just waiting with bated breath to see what these guidelines are going to be that we're going to have to adapt to in order to get back to work. So I'm excited with the 150. I'm excited for it to see it grow, but I'm looking forward to seeing what guidelines and what permits and what things we're going to have to do to make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. So, how did your career begin with Gotham Hall? And just actually, even in the industry in general, like how did you get into the hospitality wedding industry?
Sure. So I was one of those people that just kind of knew what I wanted to do from the beginning, from the time I was very young. And I started volunteering for nonprofits and doing different charity events, specifically in my church at the time. And then all of a sudden, couples who were getting engaged at the church were coming to me saying, "Hey, would you, be comfortable helping me organize my wedding?" Or, "Hey, would you know how to do a Filipino and American dual cultural ceremony and help me organize that?" And I just kind of fell in love with the industry. And so I started doing weddings, and then I started working at off-premise catering company all through high school, and really kind of just tried to find the top one in my area since I'm not from the city, and just learned from the bottom up as a server and just learned how to box a table and how to do proper food service and all of those little things that are really important and they add up. And so I kind of started from the bottom. And then I went to college. I have a bachelor's in hospitality studies. And then while I was studying for my master's, I started transitioning to do some more freelance work. And that's where I started with Health Corps and the Dr. Oz organization and helping them produce their annual charity event. And also at the end, as I neared my master's completion, I started applying for jobs, as I think everybody does. And I got really close. I got onto the fourth round of one company, and they ended up not choosing me. They chose the other person. And I think for everyone, that's a little disheartening when you're not chosen. But I would say that, you put your best foot forward and, the right doors will open. And so that president of that company ended up going to Gotham Hall, managing director Alan Kurtz, and saying, I'm not going to be able to hire her because we're choosing someone with more of a culinary background, but you're looking for this sort of position as well, and you should hire her. So my current boss, Alan Kurtz, actually reached out to me to ask if I would come in and meet with him, and kind of we just clicked and we just went from there. And now I'm celebrating 8 years working at Gotham Hall.
Yeah, that is honestly like very impressive too, because a lot of people don't tend to stay with the same company for years, but it really, shows that you're happy where you are and that like you're proud of the, the events and the place that you work for.
Yeah, and I think the other great thing is finding a company that allows you to grow within the company, that you don't have to change and hop company to company just to get a title change. And so when I started, I was not the director of catering and events. I was an associate event director, and I worked my way up. And so after a couple of promotions, then became the role that I am now. And it's a lot of hard work and a lot of hours, but if you show your dedication and you have somebody who is willing to appreciate that, I think that's just a great sign of a company to work for.
Absolutely. And also you touched on something that I think is so important, is that you really grew up in the industry working, as a server, like learning the behind the scenes aspect. I also did as well. And there's so much to be said about when you grow up and you're doing those positions leading up to going into sales or the management side of events, because every aspect, which means like, God forbid, like you could jump in if you need to, how to also like newer people that are starting, how to show them the ropes to help them out.
Absolutely. I like to say I'm not going to ask my staff to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. And so, especially when I meet new servers that come into our venue, it's very much like, I want to get to know you. I want to know your name. And if you're a really great worker, I'm going to tell the staffing to book you more. It's one of those things that I want to reward good work with more hours. And so, that's something I'm always on the lookout for, is who's taking initiative. And, when we're doing something, are they going to do something themselves, or are they just going to delegate to the next person on the totem pole? If there's a piece of trash anywhere in our ballroom, I'm just going to go pick it up. I'm not going to, wait till the cleaning person sees it. It's my home, my second home. And so I'm just going to pick it up. And that's the type of mentality I think anyone should have.
Yeah, nope. I'm definitely with you on that. I just coming from the same environment too. I know what it's like, and it's just like, even when I see people like when they're learning to serve and stuff, I like usually will go in and show them how to like carry 3 plates at a time, because I know that that's something that you need to learn over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's so important. It really is.
Yeah, and making sure your staff are properly trained and feel confident to do their job is so important. And it's hard to train someone how to do their job if you've never done it before.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something to be said about like learning every aspect of the business.
Yeah.
Now, Gotham Hall is located in Manhattan. It's really seen as a landmark venue. What can you tell everyone about the venue and what Gotham Hall can offer for their wedding day?
So Gotham Hall, as you mentioned, is located in Manhattan. We're right around the corner from the Macy's Herald Square. So we're right on Broadway and 36th Street. And we're a landmark venue. We were built back in 1922 to 1924. So we're actually coming up on our 100-year anniversary, which is exciting. And the building has just such a beautiful history. It has gorgeous 70-foot high ceilings. There's a 3,000 square foot glass dome on top that can be lit in an array of colors with our lighting partner. And there's just so much character that's already built into the venue, as it used to be a bank. It was a bank for many, many years before it transitioned to a special events venue space about 18 years ago. So it really has a lot of pre-existing character. I like to say we look good without a lot of makeup, but we also look great with makeup. So for us, it can be something that you bring in very minimal items to make look beautiful, and it can also be something that you can transform into, an all blue space or an all pink space or different colors and different themes depending on what you're looking to do. And I also find that it's one of those spaces, with 70-foot high ceilings that you can do so many different things in. I mean, I've had people bring in real Christmas trees, giant full trees in the space, or blimps that kind of went around, flew around during the reception. There's so many things that can be done in the space because it is so vast and so beautiful. But we have these beautiful teller walls also in our space that kind of lend to a more of an intimate feel. We're an oval shape, which is very different than a traditional wedding, venue that has a rectangle shape or a square space. And so the oval makes it feel really intimate, even if we're hosting a wedding for 450 people.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say that too. It isn't your typical shape that you would see. A regular catering venue is a rectangle or a square. You really don't see something that is of that shape, and it kind of gives you that space to really like work and play with
Yeah,
however you want to set up the room.
right.
It's nice. It definitely is nice. Now, you also got married there, which I
Yeah.
think is like such a testament to the place. I think when someone is working for a venue and they choose to get married there, like it just goes to show like how much they love that space and how much they believe in the space and what they do. What did your wedding look like to give everybody a little bit of an inspiration?
Sure. So I'm not originally from New York City, but my husband is a Queens boy born and bred, and so he had his friends and family close. But we had a smaller guest count. We were only about 150 guests, and I get a lot of people who come into the space and they're like, "We're only 150. Are we going to feel, too small in the space?" And 150 is kind of our minimum most of the time, because it still allows us to space the tables and to do certain spacing to make it still feel full without having to feel empty. And so we were 150. I did a mix of round tables, long rectangle tables, lots of candles. I love candles. And so we did lots of candlelight, fresh rose petals down the tables. And lighting is really important in any space, but especially at Gotham Hall. Our partner, Bentley Meeker, does all our lighting. And so I worked with them and we did a starry night look inside the space. So it was a beautiful hot Saturday in August, about 5.5 years ago now. And inside it, we were just dancing underneath the stars in the beautiful AC, which is my type of dancing. Got to have the AC. So it was really nice. But going back to what you're saying, getting married at a place that you work, I think it does speak very highly of the venue. I have just an incredible staff around me, and we're part of an entire team. And so people ask me all the time, well, weren't you worried, with you not there to manage everything? Were you able to kind of just let go, relax, and let just be a bride for the day? And I really was. I did all the planning leading up. I created the BEO. I did the floor plans myself and all of that. But I made sure my team had everything. And then I trusted my team. And that's really important, to trust your team to run with the plan that you create for your day. And so I had wonderful staff. I mean, people were trying to, we're only 150 people. I don't need that many people to work that day. But everybody was like, can I work that day? Can I work that day? So it was really sweet. And it was really special also to have my work family at my wedding as well, because that's the other part of it. When you're spending 80 hours at a venue and you're in the trenches with these people and you're working night after night with everyone, I still text my maitre d's to see how they're doing in all of this. I still text some of the servers and check in and how are you, because they really are like a second family to me. And so it was so wonderful to have that wedding and them be able to be a part of it in that way.
Yeah. No, I think like it's true what you're saying is that when you work somewhere, especially in our industry, because it's such a social world and it's late hours and early mornings, you really get to know people so well, and it does
Oh,
become
wow.
second family for sure.
Yeah. It's, I love, I love, just having that second family. So it was just wonderful to have them there on that day.
And I think if you were to have gotten married somewhere else, you probably wouldn't have been as calm as a bride as you were at the place that you were, because you're like, I know everything's going to be taken care of. Like, I don't have to worry about this.
And I think that's also part of what I love to do when I work with my brides is I love that at Gotham Hall I can work with a bride from start to finish. There's a lot of venues out there where you work with someone for a specific time. The salesperson who's showing you around on your first visit is not the same person who is overseeing everything the day of. It's pretty rare. And so I love that I get to kind of go through this whole process with my brides and grooms. I get to know them really well, and I tell them this, I'm going to get to know you really well. I have some people who still send me baby announcements and Christmas cards, and we get together every once in a while to catch up. They've become family in a way as well. And so it's one of those things that you go through this whole process. And then I like to be there that day because there is a trust. We do build a trust going through this whole planning process. And if you told me that something was really important to you, I want to make sure that it's addressed and taken care of. I trust my team will do that if it's written down in my very extensive paperwork. But I like to kind of just be there. I love to be the one waiting at the end of the aisle to say, congratulations to the new Mr. and Mrs., and, whisk them away to the next portion. So it's one of those things that it's important, whether you work there or not, to find that person who will work through the process with you and be with you. And for some people, that's a planner that you get really close. But for some people, it's the venue, it's the director of catering that's there.
Yeah, people don't understand that, like, as also, just because I also work on the venue side, is you are involved in that person's day for usually around a year, if not a year and a half, give or take. And it's like, even seeing them go down the aisle, like I always like thought of myself like, no, I'm not really an emotional person, but once they're going down the aisle, I'm a little choked up on the side, and I'm like, who am I? Like, who is this person? I don't get choked up. But
Yeah.
you establish that connection, and it's like, once it's finally there, that that wedding day, it feels good to see them, see everything that you've worked for, like, being executed, and
Yeah.
that floor plan and how everything looks once it comes together.
Yeah, I usually show up in the afternoon to kind of, while setup's already well underway at that point. But I just kind of go through, make sure everything is the way it's supposed to, you know, run the ceremony if the ceremony is on site. And, if not, if there's a planner on site that's running, work with them. But I usually will leave when the cake is cut, because after that, there's just dancing. They don't necessarily need me. But one of my favorite moments is going to say goodbye to the bride and groom, and just the words that they say to me mean the world to me. All those late nights working on diagrams, the emails, at 2 in the morning, all those things, it's all worth it, because it made their day. It's that special moment. They're going to remember it forever. And so it's a privilege to be a part of that special moment.
Yeah. I think a lot of people who might not work in our industry, and they'll be like, "Oh, you have to work weekends and this and that." And I'm like, "Yeah, but like, I'm used to it because I'm involved in the best day in people's lives. I'm not in this like sad era or miserable era of someone's life. Like I'm there for the happiest day in their life. And like not everybody can say that. Most people can't say that.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's two sides of it. You have the people who are like, oh my gosh, you have to work every Saturday, and then there's people where it's like, oh my gosh, you got to meet so and so celebrity, or you got this or that, and the end of the day, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. It's just that relationship that you have with your client and getting them the event that they wanted, the dream that they wanted, everything they pictured when they were a little kid dreaming of their wedding day. That's the end goal, and it's all worth it. The long hours are all worth it for that.
What are some of your favorite parts of a wedding day?
Um, I love seeing them walk down the aisle. That's always a highlight for me. Seeing them walk down, because I generally am standing right inside the door where the guests can't see me, but the bride and the dad can see me, or the bride and her parents can see me, or the groom and his parents. So it's one of those things that I love to see at the moment that they're right about to walk down, because I'm usually saying, are you ready? Okay, here we go. And I fix their dress as they walk past me, and then they go get married. The second thing that I like probably the most is the bride and groom right before they get introduced into their reception. Just the excitement that's building from them knowing that their family and friends are all on the other side, all having a wonderful time, and they're about to be introduced and go into this party for them is really great. Um, but my all-time favorite, because I'll give you the top three, my all-time favorite is I love to take my brides and grooms into the reception before everyone else comes in and let them see the room, because they spend a year or more typically on picking out everything from table decorations to seat coverings to the silverware to the glasses. I love having them come in and see the room transformed, and just the look on their face is just so rewarding when they walk in and they're like, yes, this is what I wanted, or oh my gosh, this is so gorgeous, I could never have even imagined this. It's one of those moments that are just so, it just makes it all worth it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I love seeing them go down the aisle for sure. I also love that like seeing them wait before they're getting introduced, because it's just like a different level of excitement and like a little bit of like nervousness on their ends.
Yeah.
And sometimes the first dance.
Yes.
I do like when it goes right into the first dance. I mean, I've seen that done many times. Some of it has been cringy, but for the most part, it's always like very sweet, and I think it's like really nice to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, with everything going on with COVID, which has just been, the bane of our existence,
Yes.
what do you think the future of the industry is going to look like, especially in New York City?
I think that we took a lot of things for granted, being able to do a lot of certain things. I think what some people don't realize is there's a lot of safety measures and health measures taken in the back of house that they don't necessarily see, and we haven't shown them. So I think going into it, people are going to be a little more interested in what is happening back of house, cleanliness wise and safety wise. And I think we'll be more transparent with showing them, since they want to see this at that, moving forward. I think we're going to be re-looking at the way we do things. It's going to be a different style. I don't think that it will always be this way. I think that this is just a time and a moment. People are not used to being in large groups right now. They miss being in large groups. And so I think it's just making sure that we're back to large groups, but in a safe way. I think the negative COVID test that the governor was talking about is a really big, important step for that. But there is also so many things that we, the venue, the vendors, and even the guests can do to make sure that this is a safe and happy moment and not a super spreader. And so back in, I want to say it was April, myself and many other leaders in the industry kind of all got together and we created what's called the Banquet Event Strategic Task Force, and BEST for short. And BEST is really designed to come up with a manual on how venues, especially with the support of their vendors, can properly open and properly and safely be able to execute these things that really matter the most in stopping the spread. And so we've put that together, and that's a living document that changes every time. So I'm eager to get Governor Cuomo's guidelines, because once we get them, it's going to, the document's going to be redone again. And that, I think, shows that we all want to get back to this, but we also want it to be a safe time. So we're going to do it the right way. There's a lot more safety procedures that we're going to have on the venue side of things in doing it than someone would just, having a wedding in their backyard.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. I know a lot of people have switched their plans to backyard weddings, especially we saw a lot of that in the summer of 2020 because they didn't really want to wait it out. And what people need to realize is that venues, wedding professionals, we all want to get back to weddings. No one is trying
Yeah.
to like stop you from having your day. Like we wish none of this went on. But sometimes when you have a backyard event without the precautions taken,
Yeah.
it's halting the industry from coming back even longer.
Yes. Yeah, it's true. If and we saw that a lot in the summer, people having those outdoor events, which are, great. I'm glad people got to get married, but not everybody did it the right way. And that was reflected in the transmission of COVID, in some of these super spreader events. And so as a on a venue side, for us, safety is so important. And so that's why we've kind of come up with this, um, you know, standard procedures really to go by when we do get back. And I think it's going to be really important for all venues. It's not just our venue. We have multiple venues that have been involved in this. We got everyone from the band to the photographers to jump in and give us their input, because we can make sure our venue is a safe and a safe area. But if a band member walks in and they have COVID, what can we do? So it's not just us, it's us as an entire team. And on the wedding day, myself and all the vendors, we operate as a team. Even if we're working for separate companies, we have the same goal. The goal is to have a perfect wedding day for that couple. And so looking at this procedures, we all have to be on the same boat, where we're making sure that nobody's showing up if they have a temperature. We're making sure people are cleaning their hands. We're making sure that, if anybody's traveled, and not, been in quarantine, that they're not there. And so those sort of things that we're, asking of our own employees, we're also asking of every vendor walking through the door, to make sure that it really is truly a safe place for everyone to be.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. It does trickle down to every single vendor being on the same page, and it's not just about the venue, but the venue houses everybody. So
Right.
it does need to be every single person taking that precaution.
Yeah, and then all venues have guidelines that vendors are used to, working with. Whether that's, ours are really easy because we don't have a loading dock. They get to kind of roll right in, ground level, which is really easy for them. But
Yeah.
some venues, you have to go through the back hotel hallways and bring your equipment through, and the load in process, and you have to have a specific time, and it's very complicated. So all venues should really have, just this as an addition to their normal procedures, whatever those procedures are, so that way safely everyone can get back to work, because we're all ready to get back to work.
Yes, yes, definitely. It's so funny how you're talking about like the load in and load out, and it's like, wow, that is so nice that you can load right in.
Yeah.
I haven't had a load in like that in a million years, and I'm like, I'm so jealous.
Yeah, we have beautiful, almost 6 foot wide doors that they just roll right in. They The road cases come right in off the sidewalk, right into the ballroom. There's no, crazy stairs or elevators, which is just
Oh,
makes it so much
that's
easier.
the dream, especially for New York City.
Yes, yes, exactly. I have worked and done events in many venues, and Loden is unique in each and every one of them.
Yes, yes, that's the word we'll use for it.
Exactly.
Now, I ask everybody when they come on the podcast, what advice do you have for brides and grooms currently planning during a pandemic?
I think my advice is be flexible. Um, it might not be planned exactly how you envisioned. It might not be exactly the way you thought it was going to be. But the fact is, the wedding is to celebrate your love together and your marriage together. And so that's the most important thing. So as long as you have that, that's the key. And then be flexible as you start working through the process. Is it more important to you to have your wedding now and only have, in March and only have 150 guests? Or is it more important to you to have it a little later with more guests? Everybody has their own thing that is more important to them. So just be flexible with that. And also realize that the venue, we wish we could host your wedding the way it was originally designed. We want that. We want that special day for them. But we have to be flexible on what we have available. At Gotham Hall, we only host one event at a time and one wedding in a day. So for us, once you have that, Saturday, April 18th date, that is your date. We're not hosting anybody else. And so when we go to look at moving the calendar around and moving someone who was, say, maybe booked in February to book them in July, if we don't have that Saturday that you're envisioning available, we might have a Friday, we might have a Sunday, or a Saturday in August instead. It's just being flexible as to figuring out what's most important to you, but realizing that we're all rooting for you and we're all trying to make sure that this day is just as special as you wanted it to be. But just be flexible in the process.
I think that's really all that everyone can do. It's,
Yeah.
we all saw that like life was up in the air this year, and where you've had to be flexible in so many other ways, this is one of them too. And hopefully it will go back to a little bit of normalcy sometime soon.
I hope so.
I hope so. Well, Stephanie, where can everybody follow you and follow Gotham Hall and see, get some inspiration, for their wedding?
Sure. So Gotham Hall's Instagram handle is at Gotham Hall NY. And my Instagram handle is loves the number 2 plan.
As you can see, another fellow planner over here, like the people in our industry, they really do love what they do. That's why we do what we do.
Exactly. You have to in this industry love what you do. And I tell people this all the time when I speak at colleges and people are thinking of getting in the industry, and I tell them all the time, if you do not love this with your heart and soul, then you need to change careers now before it's too late. Because if you're not comfortable working those long hours and this is not something that you really love, you will burn out in this industry so fast because there are so many different things that are required of you. I normally, before COVID, my day started around 9:30 in the morning. I would be at work and I would usually leave close to around 10 o'clock at night. And so they're long days. And then for weddings, I would usually show up around 1, 2 o'clock, and then I would leave when the cake is cut close to midnight. So, they're long hours. And so if you don't really love it, then you are going to get burned out. And so you have to really, really, you have to have a passion for this industry, because if you don't, it's not worth it. But
Yeah.
if you have a passion for it, it's so rewarding to see those smiles on your couple's face, to be a part of those special day. There's so many rewards you get that are intangible from this.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that. I can't wait to get back to doing it and
Yeah.
just, because that's my normal,
Yep.
just like that's your normal. And there's just nothing better than really being a part of the process and the best time in people's lives.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
well, Stephanie, I really appreciate you taking the time and coming on the podcast today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. It was nice to chat with you again.
Yes, it was so fun. I, of course, am wishing you a prosperous and busy and hopefully somewhat normal 2021 with some stunning weddings.
You too.
And yes, and, hopefully we'll be back to that, sooner rather than later. We're only a month out now from that March 15th
Yeah.
time frame.
Can't come soon enough. I'm excited to get back to work.
Me too. Me too. Everybody, thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode of the Bridetender podcast, where we have a new episode every single Monday. You can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, anywhere that you listen to podcasts, as well as watch on YouTube. You can follow me on Instagram at the Bridetender for all fun facts on the wedding industry, ways to save money on your special day, and of course, hiring the best vendors in the business for your wedding. Make sure to follow Stephanie on Instagram at loves to plan. That's a number 2. So that you can get some inspiration for your special day, see what she's up to. And of course, follow Gotham Hall at Gotham Hall NY and check out some events that Stephanie has produced and done over there to get some inspiration, and maybe go check out Gotham Hall for your special day. Until next week, mix yourself a cocktail, slide into my DMs with questions you want answered on all things weddings. Stay sane, stay healthy, and we'll catch you next week. Bye.
Bye.